When I found out my aunt was the one who stole my scholarship, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at her signature written above my name, steady and confident, as if she had every right to it. That's how it began for me. Not with screaming, not with breaking things, but with silence, the kind that burns in your chest because your world suddenly tilts sideways. The day I learned about it was humid. The ceiling fan above me made that soft, rhythmic squeak it always did, and my hands were sticky from holding the old envelope the university had mailed weeks ago. I'd been waiting for that envelope all summer, praying over it, dreaming about it, picturing my life on the other side of that one moment. But when I opened it, my heart didn't leap. It fell. The letter said, "We are pleased to confirm your scholarship funds have been successfully disbursed." Disbursed. The word didn't make sense. I hadn't even registered for classes yet. And that's when the slow unraveling began. Before all this, before words like fraud and identity theft became a part of my daily vocabulary, my life was simple, almost painfully so. I lived with my parents and my younger brother, Samir, in a small house at the edge of Rawalpindi. My father worked as a technician at a local factory, always coming home with grease on his hands, and that faint smell of machine oil that clung to his clothes no matter how many times my mother washed them. My mother was a schoolteacher, quiet, strict, and endlessly patient. And me? I was the hope of the family. The one everyone said would make it out, get a degree, find a real job, maybe even move abroad someday. Every evening after dinner, I studied at the little table by the window. The street light outside flickered between orange and white, and I used to joke that it was winking at me, cheering me on as I solved equations or scribbled essay outlines. My mother often brought me tea while humming softly. Sometimes she'd glance at my notes and say, "You'll get that scholarship, I can feel it in my bones." She wasn't wrong. I had worked for it. Years of good grades, community service, writing essays late into the night. The National Scholars Fund was my ticket to university. Without it, I couldn't afford even the admission fee. But our extended family, they didn't see it that way. My father's younger sister, Aunt Salma, was the kind of woman who carried drama like perfume. Invisible but impossible to ignore. She lived 2 streets away, in a slightly bigger house her husband had bought before he passed. She had one daughter, Sarah, who was my age, maybe 2 months younger, though she always made sure to remind me she was technically older, because she was born in January and I was born in March. We grew up side by side, same school, same bus, same gossip circle. But while I studied, she socialized. She liked makeup, outings, friends. I liked quiet. I liked goals. Aunt Salma often said half-jokingly, "What's the point of books if they don't get you a husband, Beta?" My mother would smile politely, but I always noticed her hand tighten around her teacup. Still, we saw them often. Family dinners, Eid mornings, birthdays, all the usual gatherings. I thought we were close. Maybe not warm, but safe. The first time something felt wrong was subtle, so small that I almost ignored it. It was the week after my acceptance letter arrived. I'd gone to the scholarship office in person because their online portal said my funds had been processed. I thought maybe it was an error. Bureaucracy, right? The woman behind the counter, she had kind eyes and wore bright red lipstick, looked at me with confusion when I gave her my name. "Sweetheart," she said, flipping through a stack of printed forms, "you've already signed the disbursement confirmation. It's all cleared." My stomach tightened. "No, ma'am," I said. "That's not possible. I haven't signed anything." She hesitated, then turned the screen toward me. And there it was, my name, my ID number, my address. But the signature wasn't mine. It was neater, looped, practiced. The kind of signature someone made slowly, after studying yours. I left the office with shaking hands. The sun outside felt too bright, almost mocking. That night, I told my parents. My father frowned, rubbing his temples. My mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. "There must be a mix-up," she finally said. "We'll go together tomorrow." But before we could, something else happened. The next evening, my cousin Sarah posted an Instagram story. She was standing in front of Brighton University, posing with a shiny new student ID card. The caption read, "First day of my scholarship journey, dizzy dreams do come true." I felt my blood run cold. Sarah had never applied for scholarships. She didn't even mention wanting to go to Brighton. It was my dream, not hers. My phone buzzed with notifications. Friends congratulating her. Classmates reacting with heart emojis. I stared at the screen until it blurred. A part of me wanted to believe it was coincidence, that she got her own scholarship by her own name. But a deeper part of me, the quiet part that always noticed small things, whispered that this wasn't coincidence at all. That night I couldn't sleep. The clock ticked loudly in my room. I lay there thinking of every conversation I'd ever had with Aunt Salma. Her comments about money, her offhand remarks about how expensive universities had become. And then one memory rose above the rest. A few months back, she had borrowed my folder of documents, the one with my ID card copy, birth certificate and academic records, saying she needed a sample for Sarah's admission forms. At the time, it didn't even strike me as odd. She was family. Family doesn't steal from you. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. The next morning, I printed copies of my scholarship letter and the fake signature. My hands trembled as I slipped them into a file. My mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Are you going back to the office?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "And if they won't tell me who collected that money, I'll find out myself." She looked at me for a long moment, eyes full of worry and something else. Pride, maybe. Then she said softly, "Just be careful what you find, Beta." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. But I would soon. The day the university reinstated my scholarship, it didn't feel like triumph. It felt quiet. I stood outside the main administration building, the same one where it had all begun. The afternoon sun was sharp, slicing shadows across the marble steps. The director had just handed me a new confirmation letter, my name printed in bold, clean lines, and said gently, "We're sorry this happened to you." I thanked her, but the words felt strange in my mouth. There was no joy, no vindication. Just an ache that sat behind my ribs. The kind that comes when something once sacred has been broken for good. Back home, things were different. My aunt no longer showed up at family gatherings. Sarah had withdrawn from her university, quietly, without a word of apology. Rumors spread, as they always do. People whispered about identity theft and police complaints, though I never pressed charges. I could have. I had every document, every proof. But I didn't. Because somewhere in all the anger and betrayal, I realized something. Justice and peace are not always the same thing. My parents struggled with the fallout. My father didn't speak to his sister for months. My mother, always the peacemaker, sat at the dining table late at night, staring at her untouched tea. "Family shouldn't do this," she whispered once, more to herself than to me. And I thought about that a lot. Family shouldn't. But sometimes they do. When I finally moved to the university hostel, I carried very little with me, just a suitcase of clothes, my scholarship letter, and one framed photograph of my family before everything fell apart. Life there was hard but honest. I worked part-time at the library to cover small expenses. Some nights, when I shelved books in the quiet aisles, I'd catch sight of my reflection in the glass. A girl who had learned too early what betrayal looked like, but who still refused to be defined by it. I called home often. My mother always asked the same thing. "Are you eating well?" And I always lied the same way. "Yes, Amma. Don't worry." Because that's what love sometimes becomes. Soft lies meant to keep someone's heart steady. Months later, something unexpected happened. I was walking across campus when someone called my name. I turned, and there was Sarah, standing near the gate, thinner, quieter, her usual sparkle replaced by something heavy in her eyes. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Neither of us knew what to say. Then she spoke. Her voice cracked a little. "I didn't know how to face you," she said. "Mom told me it was just a temporary thing, that she'd return the money when things got better." I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could pose with my scholarship on social media while I was being told my future had been stolen. But the anger didn't come. Not anymore. Instead, I just said quietly, "You could have told me." She nodded, tears welling. "I know. I was scared." And in that moment, I realized something else. People hurt others not always out of hatred, but sometimes out of fear, desperation, or the illusion that they can fix it later. It doesn't excuse what they do, but it helps you understand it. We stood there for a long while. She tried to hand me an envelope. Some money she said she'd saved up working at a local cafe. I didn't take it. I just said, "Live honestly, Sarah. That's enough." Then I walked away. Years have passed since then. I graduated with honors. I now work at an NGO that helps students protect their digital and personal identities. A job I never imagined for myself, but one that feels strangely right. Because every time I guide a student through filing a report or recovering lost documents, I see a version of my younger self, scared, betrayed, but still fighting. My family has found a fragile peace. My father still doesn't speak to Aunt Salma, though he occasionally sends money when he hears she's unwell. My mother, being who she is, visits quietly sometimes, taking food or medicine. I don't join her, but I don't stop her either. Forgiveness doesn't always look like hugs or reconciliations. Sometimes, it's simply choosing not to carry the bitterness anymore. One evening not long ago, I found myself back in the same small study room where I'd spent years preparing for that scholarship. The same table by the window, the same flickering streetlight outside. I sat there with a cup of tea, listening to the faint hum of traffic, and thought about everything that had happened. How easily trust can be broken. How hard it is to rebuild your sense of self after someone steals not just your money or your name, but your dream. And yet here I was. Whole. Changed but whole. Sometimes I think the real scholarship I won wasn't the one that paid my tuition. It was the one that taught me resilience. How to stand up even when your own blood betrays you. The next morning, as I walked to work, my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Just one line. "Thank you for not ruining me when you could have." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. "We all ruin ourselves when we stop telling the truth. Just don't do it again." And I meant it. If you ask me now whether I'd change what happened, I wouldn't. Because sometimes, betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a stronger version of you. The kind that knows how to build boundaries, how to value honesty, how to recognize real love when it finally shows up. When someone steals from you, not your possessions but your trust. How do you find the courage to forgive? Would you have done what I did? Would you have chosen peace over revenge? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone you love, remember, it's not the end of your story. It's just the chapter where you learn what you're truly made of. Thank you for listening to my story. This was my truth, told not out of bitterness, but out of healing. If my voice found you today, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like mine.